Welcome to The Nation. I'm Rachel Smalley. Our first guest is famous for saying whatever it takes in reference to keeping Australia's Labor Party in power. Graham Richo Richardson is described as the politician who came to personify political ruthlessness. He played a key role in ousting Bill Hayden as leader and replacing him with Bob Hawke. And then 8 years later, he helped roll Bob Hawke and replaced him with Hawke and Keating. Now as Sky News commentator, he says Julia Gillard's legacy could become the near destruction of modern Labor. He joins us now from Sydney. Good morning, Graham. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Pleasure, Rachel.
What's gone wrong? How on earth did it get to this?
Well, everything's gone wrong, I think, is the short answer. But I think that Julia Gillard has been serially misjudging almost every big decision in the last 2 years. And it's made her incredibly unpopular. She's also lost credibility because she made the big promise on the carbon tax, you know, that there shall not be one, and of course then there was one. And, you know, the surplus, she made that promise hundreds of times there'd be a surplus, and then on Christmas Eve, when we were all doing our Christmas shopping, they just whispered an announcement that said, oh, by the way, there won't be one. I mean, look, there's just been so many mistakes and so many problems, it's just become a joke over too long a period. OK, so then there is a spill announced, and the Rudd camp, we're told, is going to challenge, and then doesn't. Why didn't Kevin Rudd challenge? Well, the whole thing became a just high farce, really. What had happened was the Rudd camp had decided not to challenge. On the Wednesday night, Simon Crean had bowled into the office of one of them and said, look, I'll bring 6 over with me. And he wanted to become Deputy Prime Minister, that was the price. But they were prepared to pay the price if he could bring 6 over because they knew they didn't have the numbers and they had decided not to challenge. Well, the agreement was that each one of these 6, these brave, courageous 6, would walk into the Whip's office, Joel Fitzgibbon's office, and say, I pledge my fealty to Kevin Rudd. Only one came. And so by midday, with nobody else coming, they'd basically decided it was all off. And it was all off. You know, they just absolutely walked away and said there'll be no challenge. Unbeknownst to them, completely, Simon Crean got up all on his little lonesome and said, hang on, I want to challenge it. He made that great speech at the press conference, best speech he's ever made probably, and he did it all on his own. And so when the Rudd forces, actually I can remember that two of the senior ones actually didn't even know the press conference was on. They had to be called out of meetings to watch it. And, excuse me, they were all stunned. And so what happened? Of course, they did their count. It was still the same. So they said, well, we're not going to challenge.
But that's extraordinary. I would have thought Simon Crean would be far too smart to act, in essence, what seems to be in isolation here.
Yeah, well, so did I. I thought he was way too experienced for that. But I think when he failed to bring over anybody, when he realised he couldn't bring anyone, I think he was frustrated at the way things were going. He did by then think that Julia Gillard's leadership was so flawed that she needed to be removed. And so he took a punt. The problem is you can't really take a punt in those circumstances, certainly not when the odds are long. If you haven't got the challenger and the challenger's advisors with you, then it's a pretty silly thing to do. But he took the punt and paid the price.
Indeed. And then we see a statement that comes out from, on behalf of Kevin Rudd, which said there are no circumstances under which he will return to the Labor Party leadership in future. Does that mean under this government's term, or is that it? We'll never see Kevin Rudd making a run for the leadership again?
Oh, I don't think you'll ever see him making a run again. Look, you know, when he was beaten last year, the reality was the troops were still saying we're going to have another go. They're not saying that now, not one of them. They're all saying it is now over. And so everybody's cue is on the rack. And as far as Kevin Rudd's concerned, I think after the next election he'll fade anyway. So no, I think that the Kevin Rudd period is over, well and truly over.
So is there someone else waiting in the wings then?
God, I wish. I think the next leader is most likely to be Bill Shorten from Melbourne, who is, I think, a very good performer. But the problem he's going to have is after the slaughter, and that's what's going to happen next September, he's going to have so much ground to make up. They, generally speaking, will give a new opposition leader a couple of goes. So in 6 years, he's got to win back something like 40 seats, and I doubt that that's possible.
OK, so Parliament's in recess for the next 6 weeks. How will Labor use that time? Because, you know, we knew what Labor stood for under Hawke and under Keating. I'm not sure anyone quite knows what Labor stands for under Gillard.
No, I certainly don't. And I think that's one of the problems, is that Labor stopped representing those it traditionally represented. And it's just been such a mishmash in the last few years that no one's ever known where they stood. I think that was probably true under Kevin Rudd too. I think Labor started losing its way under Kevin Rudd and then well and truly got lost in the wilderness under Julia Gillard. I don't know what Labor stands for anymore, and I doubt there are too many people who do. It's interesting, you know, that if you're a traditional Labor person, you'd worry about those who are unemployed, who are struggling to get a job, particularly the older ones. The reality is you can't live on Newstart. It's virtually impossible. It's way too, that's our dole, which is way too low, and yet there's virtually been no discussion in Labor about a decent increase in it. In the old days, that would have been the priority. These days, it doesn't get a look in.
I spoke to John Howard earlier this week, and he said that, you know, the reason behind Labor's demise is nothing to do with the personality battles. He said it was purely about failed policy. Would you agree with him on that?
No, I totally disagree. I think it's all about those people who are selling the policies. In the end, while you can criticise the amount of debt Australia's got, it got through the GFC probably better than any country in the Western world. It did remarkably well. And so the management wasn't that bad. The selling of the management has been appalling. And there have been so many times when stupid errors are made. I mean, I can't even begin to nominate all of them, but if you want, I'll give you a go. I can give you a quick 10 minutes on how many mistakes have been made in a short period of time. But suffice to say, there are so many that you can't get a message across. There's too much background noise.
So where does all this leave Labor now? Presumably they are, in essence, you know, dog tucker. Have they essentially handed the next election to the Liberals?
Well, I think they already had. I mean, I don't believe even if Kevin Rudd had become leader that Labor could have won. I think what Rudd would do is get Labor much, much closer, though. I don't think we'd be slaughtered under Kevin Rudd, but under Julia Gillard, I expect a really bad result. You know, she'll try over the next 6 months. She's a very tough lady. She'll try hard to bring it back. But she's so personally unpopular that I just don't think it's possible. I don't think people believe her. And so they've stopped listening. It doesn't matter what she says, they've just stopped listening.
OK, so how would an Abbott-led government look, do you think, with a huge majority?
Look, Abbott's competent. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's fashionable in Labor terms to use the misogyny line and all the rest of it. But, you know, Abbott, while he might be a little too rigid for me in his personal views, there's no doubt he's a competent guy. He's a very bright guy, a former Rhodes Scholar, and he'll run a competent government. What he can't do, and I think what Australia's crying out for, is he can't inspire people. And gee, I think, you know, so many Australians are looking to political leadership and saying, why can't I find someone there who can inspire me and inspire the nation and take us forward? And there's no one like that on the political landscape at the moment, and that's a very, very sad thing. Either side of politics, they're just not producing the leaders. There's no Hawke, there's no Keating, that's for sure.
All right, Graham Richardson, we have to leave it there, but thank you for your time this morning, live for us from Sydney.